Welcome to week 5 of our Purposeful Living program. And this week we are going to be focusing on approval seeking. Approval seeking generally has a huge impact on the way we live our lives, what we achieve when it comes to success. And because we often are spending way too much of our time in efforts to win the approval of others or in being concerned with some disapproval that we may or may not encounter. Now, if approval has become a need in your life, then you have some work to do. You can begin by understanding that approval seeking is a desire rather than a necessity. And what we're going to do is we're going to cover you don't need their approval, typical approval seeking behavior, and then we're going to cover strategies to eliminate approval seeking as a need. So, like I said a little bit earlier, is that we might find that we are spending way too much time seeking approval from others. Now, you can start this by understanding that approval seeking is a desire rather than a necessity. We all enjoy applause, and that is perfectly fine. We enjoy compliments and obviously praise. And it feels good when we are mentally stroked. Who would want to give this up? And obviously, none of us do. Well, there is no need to actually give it up. What we actually have to realize is that approval in itself is not unhealthy. In fact, being admired and getting approval from others is very pleasurable. Now, approval seeking is only a problem when it becomes a need rather than a want. And if you want approval, you are simply happy to have an endorsement of other people. But if you need it, you are going to collapse if you don't get it. And that's when the self destructive forces move in. Similarly, when approval seeking becomes a need, you give up a chunk of yourself to the outside person whose advocacy you must have. If they disapprove, then you are immobilized. In such a case, you have chosen to wear your self worth on your sleeve for someone else to actually have an impact on. And that's what we need to focus on. It gets in our way and we don't achieve what we want. We don't say what we want in certain relationships. We don't ask for what we want because we feel that people will disapprove. And we also don't say no when we're supposed to. Typical approval seeking behaviors, and the list is ongoing, but here are a few. First of all, is changing a position or altering what you believe because someone shows signs of disapproval. And I have noticed this happens specifically, for instance, in family situations, is where you disagree about a important point, for instance, a political point or anything else, and it's not the same point that others have, then you're willing to actually shift or even keep quiet. Then there is sugarcoating a statement to avoid the reaction of displeasure. So we don't want the other person to get upset. So we rather smooth it over and we don't actually say what we mean in situations like that. Feeling depressed or anxious when someone disagrees with you, labeling someone a snob or stuck up, which is just actually another way to say, please give me attention, performing chores for someone and feeling resentful about not being able to say no. And that's it happens quite often is that we take way too much on and we take things on for other people because we seek their approval. And then afterwards, we feel resentful, but we're also upset that they didn't thank us in the way that we thought they should. Then saying things you don't mean just to avoid being disliked. And then this one, I think, but a lot of women battle with this, is apologizing at every turn. So if you've got an opinion that you think someone else won't like, or it's a different opinion, you start your sentence with "I'm sorry, but." Okay. Then non-conformance, and this is quite odd. So behaving in non-conforming ways for the purpose of gaining attention, which is the same as conforming for the sake of external approval. So what you're doing is wearing tennis shoes with your tuxedo, or eating a handful of mashed potatoes and wanting to be noticed is still approval seeking. trying to impress others with your knowledge of something that you know nothing about, and that is faking it. And we experience that a lot. So these are a few, but I can tell you the list is ongoing. So why do we do it? Why do we seek other people's approval? Because we already know that it is a self-defeating behavior, and we know that we need to change it, but we have to identify what are the causes of it. And the payoffs in a situation when it comes to approval seeking is, first of all, what's happening is I'm placing my responsibility for my feelings on you. So if you don't give me the approval I need and I feel lousy and hurt or depressed, then what is happening? It's your fault that I feel that way. If I'm placing the responsibility on you for how I feel, I don't need to change. And it helps me to avoid change at all costs. With that comes the fact that I don't have to take any risks, because it's your fault that I actually feel that way. I can't change because you made me feel that way. So I don't need to take any risks. And I can take solace in the fact that others notice me, which gives me something to boast about to other approval seeking friends. Finally, I can fit into the culture which applauds such behavior and winning you the favor of many. And we must be very careful because these are what we call neurotic payoffs, and they're strikingly similar to the rewards for self hate. In fact, the theme of avoiding responsibility, change, and risk is at the heart of all self destructive thinking. Without all the fancy diagnostic language, it is just plain easier, more familiar, and less risky to hang on to neurotic behaviors. Now, some strategies to eliminate approval seeking as a need. First of all, we need to start with labeling disapproval approval with new responses that begin with the word you. For example, you are in a conversation with your father and you can see that he is disagreeing with you and he's getting angrier. So rather than shifting or defending yourself, simply respond with, "You're getting upset and you feel that I shouldn't think the way I do." This will keep you in touch with the fact that disapproval belongs to him and not to you. Now, the you strategy can be employed anytime, and it has amazing results if you master the technique. You'll have to fight the temptation to start with I, thereby putting yourself in the position of defending or modifying what you just said in order to gain acceptance. Secondly, if you think someone else is trying to manipulate you, which often happens, and they do this by withholding approval, then you need to start saying so. So instead of turning wishy washy for the purpose of reaping some approval benefits, you can say out loud, "Generally, I would shift my position now in order to get you to like me, but I really believe in what I said, and you'll have to deal with your own feelings about it. Or, I guess you'd like me to change what I just said." Now, the act of labeling it will be helpful in keeping in touch with your own thinking and behavior. Thirdly, you can thank someone for providing you with data that will be helpful in your growth, even though it was something you didn't like. So if someone says something like, "I really don't like what you said, and you really are unfair or selfish," then you, rather than trying to please that person, simply just thank them for pointing it out, and then you just move on because that will stop approval seeking behavior. So thank you for the feedback. Then you can also, if you want to actually practice to stop approval seeking, then look at actively seeking disapproval. So you can go out of your way to seek disapproval. And that you can do in a number of ways. You can do it online, for instance, where you know it's an unpopular opinion and you put it out there. So you select someone who is bound to disagree and you fly in the face of disapproval and maintain your position calmly. And you practice this. Also, you can practice ignoring disapproval, and to see how that works. So, in other words, not paying attention to those who attempt to manipulate you with their with their views or with withholding disapproval. And it actually works quite well. You can break the connection chain between what others think, say, and do, and your own self worth. And that is going to be very important. So you talk to yourself when you encounter disapproval. And you've got to say things like, this is her stuff. I expect her to behave that way. It has nothing to do with me. Now, this approach will eliminate the self hurt that you inflict when you connect someone else's feelings with your own thoughts. You can also ask yourself a very important question when you acquire disapproval. If they agreed with me, would I be better off? The answer is obviously no. Whatever they think can have no effect on you unless you let it. So, moreover, you'll most likely find that you are better liked by those important people, like a boss or a loved one, when you can disagree with them without worry. And then finally, you can accept the simple fact that many won't ever understand you, and that is okay. Conversely, you won't understand many other people who are very close to you. So you don't have to. It's all right. It's all right for them to be different. And the most fundamental understanding you can have is that you don't understand. And I think that is going to be extremely important. You can refuse to argue or to try and convince anyone of the rightness of your stand and simply believe it. And that is okay. You don't have to convince me of your point because it is your point. And the fact that I don't believe in it is all right. We can actually agree to disagree. You don't become a bigger, better person just because I agreed with you. So I really hope that you're going to apply some of these strategies. And then for homework, I want to know, whose approval do you look for and what happens when they disapprove? How do you feel and react? And what have you not done due to the fear of disapproval? And this could also be, what do you do that you don't want to do, but you don't want anyone's disapproval? And that could be, for instance, saying yes to things that you shouldn't say yes to. And then make a list of things you currently do that you don't want to do. Why do you continue doing these things? So the way forward, we're going to have our accountability meeting on Valentine's Day. If you guys haven't got any plans, I hope you'll join me. And we're going to look at building relationships next week. Thank you very much for joining me. And again, if you need any help, please feel free to contact me. Here is my email address. Thank you and have a great week.